Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Radiant Menopause podcast. As promised, here is my first episode interviewing the partner of a menopausal woman. In this case, it is Jonathan Guy, who is the husband of Emma Guy, who featured in episode 11. She shared her story of her breast cancer journey and being thrown into a surgical menopause. Jonathan's very open and honest about his experience, not only dealing with Emma's diagnosis and her subsequent operation to have her breast removed under a mastectomy, but also how surgical menopause has changed Emma and how the dynamics of their relationships have changed, both physically and mentally. And I'm very grateful to him because actually I didn't realise that this was the first time that he's really opened up and talked to anybody about this subject. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and perhaps you could go back and listen to Emma's side of the story in episode 11 as well. I am delighted to have a gentleman in the house today, and he's not an expert in the terms of, I have interviewed other people that have perhaps provide solutions, but I am going to do a series of interviews with wonderful men who are willing to talk about their experience of their own partners or in this case wives menopausal journey. So I'm really grateful to you, Jonathan, for coming on today. Thank you.
Very welcome.
So, and some of our listeners might have already heard the episode I did with Emma Guy, who is the menopausal godmother. She's an acupuncturist. She's a specialist in menopause and fertility. And she shared with us her journey about her breast cancer diagnosis, her treatment, and then being flung into the menopause at 2016, which she wasn't warned about. And presumably neither were you then.
No, completely clueless at that moment in time. So, I'm afraid we went through the journey together, and it was a journey of discovery, I suppose, amongst other things, because we didn't know what was coming next.
No. And so, bad enough for her, but actually this is your second marriage, isn't it? So you hadn't been together. How long had you been together when all of this happened?
We have been together now, probably about, just thinking now, is it 18 years? I think it's 18 years we've been together in total. So,
yeah. This is a good 14 years into your relationship. So
yeah,
it wasn't that new. You knew each other really, really well.
Yeah, we'd been married for a long time. We've got a son together, and we know each other inside and out.
And were you working on your business together at that point as well?
Primarily I was working in Aqueous on my own, although Emma was coming in sort of one day a week, which is typically what she was doing. But she was focused more on on growing the acupuncture business. But we've worked together in the businesses for since they started, for 9 years, really.
Yes. So the actual diagnosis of the breast cancer must have been traumatic enough in itself, was it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it was horrible. I mean, yeah, as anybody who has a partner, stroke wife, stroke husband, stroke whatever, who has gone through that moment when you're told, yes, you have cancer. Yes, it's horrible. It's a dreadful, dreadful thing to hear. And I suppose my coping mechanism for all of that was practicality, which is as a bloke thing, really, which is to say, I'm not prepared to get emotional and weepy about it. It literally was boxed off in my head. That's it. Right. It's there. Let's deal with this. And therefore, it's about the practicalities of getting through a day-to-day routine, if you like, to try and support Emma. And everything I was trying to do at that point was to be supportive, to actually help her in any way I could. And it is really hard because the one thing I can't really give her is the emotional support that she needs for going through what she's going through. It's really, really difficult to do that because you can't possibly imagine what emotions are going through someone else's head at that point.
And so after, Emma described very well how she decided. She took control, she took responsibility. She said, I don't want a lumpectomy, I'm going to go straight in for a mastectomy here. Fortunately, it was a ductal carcinoma, so she didn't have to do any chemo or radiotherapy. She's really fortunate about all of that. They did test her lymph nodes, they were clear. But, you know, this was a massive physical change, a physiological change, let alone the emotional changes that came along with it as well. How did you deal with that?
As best I could is the honest answer. I mean, you often talk to people who are, if you see interviews of people who are survivors of experiences, and they say, well, how did you get through it? And, well, I was just in the moment, so I just kept going, is usually the answer in one form or another. And that's exactly the same with me, which was, it was nothing I could control or change or influence. I just had to get through it with Emma, and I had to get her through it. More importantly, it wasn't about me; it was about her, getting her through this, and that was my focus. So most of my time I was concentrating on trying to make sure she was okay, and I was doing everything I could to support her, and whatever she was going through. But that's incredibly difficult.
Did anybody support you through this?
Well, Emma.
Yeah. There isn't support, is there? You know, the whole thing about this is that, you know, when we talk about breast cancer, and we're going to talk about menopausal symptoms and your experience of that, is this is your queen. You know, and a lot of women don't understand that, you know, whatever relationship, wherever they are in their relationship with their partner, whether that's a man or a woman, is that when something dramatic happens like this, and we've seen this happen through COVID, is that you review your relationship, you review what's important in life, don't you? Yeah. And that's the similar thing to when you get a diagnosis, and I think it's dramatic as that, is, you know, you really go back to, why am I in love with this woman? Why is she so important to me? Because the stark reality is, am I a frigging loser? And of course, you know, that's what we're really talking about here. And of course, I think a lot of the focus is on the patient. You know, most of the focus is on the patient. But actually, there is still this lack of a holistic approach and a family approach, with nobody really thinking about you dealing with the potential loss of your queen.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you say that, and it's absolutely right. But from my point of view, I was never going to lose her, because I could not allow myself to be in a mindset where that was an option or an outcome. And
she'd done her mind mapping thing, and she'd planned a funeral.
Yeah. I refused to accept it. I absolutely refused to accept it. I understood where she was coming from. I accepted that she'd done that and gone through that process, but I wouldn't accept it in my head. And I kept saying to her, no, you're going to be all right. You are going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And I didn't change my opinion or waver in any way at any point through that whole process. Which again, it's my coping mechanism, because if mentally I've given into it, then I'm not going to be strong enough for her. So I couldn't afford to give into it, and therefore I was completely focused that she was going to get through this. Absolutely, I was adamant that the care was going to be right, that it wasn't going to come back. The whole shooting match for me was about making sure she came through this and supporting every step of the way. But as you say, I didn't speak to anybody about it, and I still haven't. This is the first time I've actually opened up to anybody.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because it's a bloke thing, and most blokes will understand this. You know, men are sitting there going, "Yeah, I know what he means." It's not the thing that you talk to your mates about, unless you've got a really close mate that you know you spend lots of time with, so you're regularly out down the pub or whatever. And you're confiding in each other with all sorts of stuff, then yes, you could do. But because of the nature of our businesses and how hard we work and how long we work, you know, this isn't something that I go and do. I don't go and sort of hang out with the boys and play golf or go to the footy or any of that. I'm too focused on you know, doing what we're doing at this moment in time. So there isn't that close support network that's around me of other men that I feel I can sit and talk to, or indeed other women. Just not there. So I didn't talk to anybody, and I haven't talked to anybody about it. Now, is that a good thing? I don't know. But I'm still here and I'm still smiling. So
yeah, I think the testament that you have a very close relationship with them is very, very clear, actually. And I, you know, it's not like, I think what I see is that we're all very eager to wear a badge and that's particularly in the menopause space. And I did a bit as well. I'm dealing with these menopause symptoms, and I'm not going to take an HRT as if it's some sort of frigging badge. Aren't I clever? I'm Superwoman and I can get through this. Yeah. And of course, if we're entrepreneurial, if we've got businesses, if we're like you and we're very focused and you're a very organized guy, I mean, she calls you the Anorak, doesn't she?
Just look behind and you can see that's my organization,
That's a stamp collection. Is that, this is a badge for you. We all wear our badges. We all have our stories. We all have our personal reality that we live under. And actually that also at times can be our saviors too, because your coping mechanism fitted very much in with the way that you live your life. But there obviously will be other people that will just completely collapse and dissolve. And, it may be that they are the ones that it would be lovely to think that they would get the help and support. And that's why it's so important that we do interview you and people like you that are willing to come out, if you like, and say, well, okay, this is my experience, not only of the breast cancer thing, but actually, I really want to talk about your experience with Emma going through the menopause, because she was thrown right into it, wasn't she?
She was, and I mean, I don't think I'm qualified in any way to give anybody any advice on how you cope with this stuff, because every experience is going to be different. But from my point of view, the one thing that did keep me going was that inner belief that it was going to be all right. And I had to keep clinging to that, even when there were times when it looked like it wasn't going to be that good. I refused to give in to the alternatives. I just couldn't accept it.
So let's talk a little bit now about then the things that happened afterwards, the things that you weren't expecting, which we now know in hindsight, because Emma and I talked about this. She had very big mood swings. Obviously, she had periods of depression, which could actually be put down to the fact that, for goodness sake, she's had a major operation. She's had the trauma of having a breast removed, all the self-image stuff. But actually, looking back, I think, she realizes that she went into surgical menopause, which is this being thrown headlong into this roller coaster ride. It doesn't really matter how we label it, but how did you cope with that sort of side of what you were seeing that Emma was manifesting?
That's an interesting question, because you can only judge that in retrospect. So hindsight is my favorite predictive model, as I keep telling people. And 2020 hindsight is what you need to be able to cope with this, because at the time when it's happening, you have no ideas it's happening. You don't know. So, for example, we could be getting on absolutely fine, and then suddenly there's sharp words from somewhere. Wow. And I once described it to Emma as going from 0 to full-blown row in 10 seconds.
And you've never had that before with her, had you?
No. I mean, she's fiery. She's got a proper temper on her, as she probably can tell. But no, we'd never really been like that. And we say, we could say sharp things to each other and know that we mean it out of love. But some of the stuff that was happening was, I was starting to take personally, thinking, hang on a second, is this me? And it wasn't until I kind of realized what was going on, and she realized what was going on, that we kind of came to the conclusion that it was these menopausal symptoms. And I think the best way I summed it up was to say, I know it's not you. And that was it. I mean, I had to say to at one point, I know this isn't you, because it was almost like someone different was inhabiting her brain for moments, if you like. And it, most of the time it was Emma, but occasionally it was just this little switch flipped, and it was somebody very different that I wasn't expecting. And it normally happens suddenly as well. So the rows, if you like, when they happen, or the sharp words. Because we don't really row with each other, but the sharp words, they come out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. And there was one occasion, which wasn't that long ago, where I moved something, literally. I sat on the sofa and I moved something about 2 feet to my right, and that caused a row.
Wow.
And so much so that I had to come and find her and go, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Because I have no idea. So I know you're upset with me. I know you're really, really angry with me, but I just don't know what I've done. And when she explained what it was,
now that she's has a bit more awareness about it, Is she able to kind of go,
Well,
sorry?
well, yes, but this is the point. Only after we both calm down.
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the things that I use as a coping mechanism, and she knows this, is I can look at her and say, "No, I'm sorry, I'm walking away from this.
Yeah.
Let's talk in a bit," because I know that if I continue the conversation, because of course she's going to have a go at me, I'm going to have a go back, because I'm not going to sit there and let somebody walk all over me. Doesn't matter if it's my wife or anybody. That doesn't happen. So it's all fight or flight, and you go for fight because that's your standard reaction. But the reality is you don't need to do that, and you shouldn't do that. And the best thing I found is to simply say, this isn't going to happen right now. I'm going to walk away from you. If you still feel the same way in 5-10 minutes, come and find me. Let's continue the conversation.
Yeah.
And that takes the heat out of it, which is quite useful.
So it's interesting that even in the moment, this red mist appears for her. And in afterwards, when it's died down, I'm sure she kind of rationalizes it and says, oh yeah, that was ridiculous, but even through this red mist, for her, the reality is, you've messed up. It's your fault.
Oh, absolutely, it's entirely my fault, and that has to be the starting point. It's my fault. And
does she do the same with William, interestingly?
She can do. Not as often, not as frequently, just occasionally. Typically, I'll look at what he's done and go, yeah, you're right. So it's him that's actually caused the problem. But you can be very quick to chide him, if that's the right word. But if he's done something wrong, whereas my approach will be far different, I suppose. I've got a slightly more relaxed approach to some of these things. So if he's done something not quite right, let's see, he's left dishes on the floor somewhere, for example, I'll have a quiet word that says, you could do with shifting them about now, okay?
Yes.
But what you're doing now would be a
really
really
going to end well.
yeah, absolutely. Now would be a really, really good time to go and move those. Yeah. And he goes, right, okay, and he'll shift and do it. But Emma might walk in and start going, why are there dishes on the floor? It's exactly the same thing. It's a slightly different approach.
And I think you can see why, for the majority of women, 51 is the average age of the last over period, menopause. And for 51-year-olds, we're having our babies a bit later. So you've got in the household, and I know you don't have a girl, but if you had a 14-year-old girl going through puberty and Emma going through menopause at the same time, this is a frigging recipe for disaster, isn't it, potentially?
Indeed, absolutely, and it could be. My daughter went through puberty, and it was a very difficult time for us. Our relationship was fractured at that moment in time. Thankfully, we're back together and stronger than ever now. So.
Is she 20 odd now?
She's 24 now.
Yeah.
Coming up actually next week or so. So yeah, I mean, but it's lovely. We've got a great relationship now. I've got a great relationship with my eldest son as well. And the kids are absolutely fine. It's not a problem. I think from my point of view, I've tried to remain as calm and as uniform in my approach all throughout. So
do you feel though that, Jonathan, do you worry about it? Are you conscious all the time, or is it just occasionally when it comes up? Is this front of mind, or can you kind of just enjoy the day with her?
You've got to just enjoy the day. It can't be the if it's all consuming, then your relationship's going to be tested to the limit. Okay, so it can't be. You have to be with the one you want to be with, and you have to love them, which I do with Emma. And I want to stay with her, and I want to be with her, and we like to spend time together, and we do spend a lot of time together. I mean, the lockdown weeks, we've literally sat in this office, which is 10 foot by 6 foot. 12 foot by 6 foot, and that's it. And we've been next to each other side by side at a small desk for these 16 weeks now, and it's day in, day out. Every phone call we've had has been on speakerphone pretty much. So there's no secrets, there's nothing hidden. Everybody knows what's going on. And there are a couple of times where we've got quite fractures with each other, but it's because we're so on top of each other for such a long time. We're not used to it.
But the lovely thing is, and I have to tell you this, that I asked Emma a few quick fire questions at the end of our conversation. And I said to her, what is she looking forward to most about the next stage in her life? And she said it's actually spending more time with you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, the pair of us are so damn busy doing what we're doing, building businesses, that you kind of take your eye off the main goal, I suppose, which is, well, what are you going to do when that's finished? Because that could come to an end in 5 years, 10 years, whenever.
Yeah.
And then you've got the rest of your life together. And this is the thing. We decided a long time ago we wanted to spend the time together, both of us, for the rest of our lives. That's it. We just decided that. So we're happy with that. So kind of, looping back to the earlier question, really, I mean, when it comes down to it, we do want to spend time together and with each other. And if that's the case, and suddenly, as you say, that the red mist descends, but it doesn't feel like that, it doesn't happen like that. You have to have some kind of coping mechanism with it. And I think the reality is, and certainly for me, I get up every morning, it's a fresh day. The day's going to be good. It's going to be good. And we're going to make things happen, and we're going to be great together. And we usually are. And that's the beauty of it. Only occasionally do we start getting touchy with each other. And when we do, we know this now, and we recognize it. And, we can either or both of us get up and just walk away and say, I've got to walk away for 10 minutes, go out for a walk, or, get some space or whatever, because we don't want to row with each other. We just don't. And there's usually no need for it. But as you were saying before, can she see after the event, what's happened? Yeah, we both can. And, am I always right? No. Sometimes I've done stuff and I realize actually it's really upset her or annoyed her. Is it intentional? No. But that's just the way it is with any partnership, with anybody. You're always going to do something at some point which you're going to upset.
So apart from the emotional changes that you have been witness to and have coped admirably with, are there any other sides to Emma's symptoms that you've had to that you've been worried about, that has changed your relationship from a physical point of view?
Well, yeah, physically she's obviously struggled with the body image element of it, and therefore that close relationship we had prior to this happening hasn't quite been the same since. But that's to be expected. I'm not desperately worried about it. What I keep saying to her is, look, I still love you, and I do. And I want to be with her, and whether we've got that close physical connection or not, it's almost irrelevant, because mentally we're connected, and that's where we fell in love with each other a long time ago, just talking to each other, literally just talking on the phone. We knew we wanted to be with each other because of that sort of connection we made, and it was literally over a phone. So later when we got together and there's a physical relationship, that was a bonus as far as we were both concerned.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, because one of the moments when a relationship will break up is at 51, and women will leave work at 51 because that's the average age. But talking about the sort of physical sides of it, and whether it's because you've had a traumatic operation like Emma, whether or not, and I've done an episode as part of this series talking about vaginal atrophy, which a lot of women don't know about, and men certainly don't know about, which affects a woman's libido, and certainly the ability to have penetrative sex. That happens to 80% of the women. It's really high, but it's not discussed at all. But it doesn't mean that you don't want to be close to your partner. It becomes a physical, at times, impossibility. There are things, and I've discussed what you can do about it, but actually it's much more common. And that years ago our mothers would say, well, I'm not interested in that anymore. And you think, you could never imagine at a 30-year-old, well, why would I never be interested in sex with my husband? But when you understand the physical changes, let alone the self-image thing that Emma's gone through, we have much more empathy and sympathy and understanding now of what these massive changes are for women in this withdrawal of estrogen, and the fact that we now are living with each other for so much longer. You and Emma could potentially live together to your 80s or 90s. And so inevitably things are going to change, are changing, and that the dynamics of a relationship, and particularly a physical relationship, regardless of the fact that, you know, she's had this traumatic operation, they're always going to change anyway. And I just wonder how much men even consider that, and really, you know, have this in their brain at all.
Well, most men wouldn't know about it. I certainly hadn't considered it prior to it happening. And again, I think everyone's going to have a different approach. And you do hear stories all the time of, you know, couples of our age who split up, you know, and you kind of think, wow, they've been together for ages. Why on earth would that happen? You know, how could they possibly? And all the rest of it. And he's run off with a younger woman, and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And it's really, really quite strange, really. And certainly to me anyway, because, you know, maybe made up a long time ago, I'm staying with her. That's it. So we don't know about this. We're not told about this, and it's certainly not something which is a conscious thing at the start of any sort of relationship or any process. But as you go through this and you start arriving at the point where things are changing, it just becomes part of everyday life that things change. And when someone says to you, well, when was the first time you noticed this happening? I don't know. I can't remember, because it changed very slowly over a long period of time. And I couldn't pinpoint a moment in time to say, oh, yes, absolutely. Her libido was different from that day onwards.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm getting older as well. So mine's changing as well.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, there's always the argument that says, well, you're going through the andropause. Well, I don't know. How would I know? You know, it's again another thing that no one's talking about. So there's no real information out there, and I certainly wouldn't consider it. So therefore, I wouldn't go researching it, because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm getting up every morning. I've got a positive attitude on the day. I'm going out and making things happen, and I'm focused on that. And anything else is a bit of a bonus. So yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, it is. And I think, you know, I think it's wonderful. Emma was telling me about the fact that William is getting in his PPE, he's getting lectures or, you know, information on the menopause, largely down to some work that Diane Danzigbrook is doing, who's also a former nurse, getting menopause talked about in the national curriculum. Whether or not, you know, these kids are going to remember this when they come out of school, you know, we always think, well, why did I learn all that, you know, algebra? Because I'm never going to use that. Hopefully they'll use the menopause stuff.
I'm sure they will. Yeah, algebra you can get through your life without worrying about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, one of the things that is really important for me is the legacy that we'll leave. Emma and I are, you know, the godmothers. You know, this is the identity that we've kind of got for ourselves, that she's picked up and uses as a brand now, is being just much more open than our previous generations have been, opening up the conversation, exposing this kind of knowledge to the world, to say it's okay to talk about it, it's okay to recognize that you're no different, you're not alone, and that actually this is a very normal part of a relationship that develops as we get older.
And that sort of recognition is important, I think. But I think more importantly is that if you are with somebody who you plan to be with for the rest of your life, then, you know, it's not. I was going to say, it's not as if there's a book about it. There probably is. There's no manual out there that says, right, you need to watch for this. When you get into your 50s, this might happen. Okay, here are some signs to watch for. And no one's interested, because everyone's focused on their daily lives and moving forward. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm very grateful to you for you know, being so open and sharing with us. And I know, you know, I thank Emma as well, because, you know, not every woman would want her partner to be you know, sharing such intimate information. So you know, I really honor and thank the pair of you for your generosity in this.
you're welcome. Hopefully it will help somebody. Something might just resonate with somebody, which would be great, if we've actually done something to help another relationship. And you know, from me to any other man who's going through this with their wife or partner, I'd say, you know, a couple of top tips. In the old days, the men used to say, you know, put up or shut up kind of routine, and most of them would just shut up and just let the woman carry on and you know, get it out of her system. But just be there for your partner. Just be there for your wife, because it's a horrible thing that they go through. It's confusing. It's surprising. it's genuinely a bit of a shock to their system as well as it is to yours as well. So be there and support them. You need to use these in the right proportion: 2 ears, 1 mouth. I found listening a lot more does help, and not having the right answer for everything. So just shut up.
Yeah, not trying to solve the problem, because you're not there to solve the problem. Definitely, you're just there to listen.
Here's the thing: you can't. That's the point. You can't solve the problem. So as a bloke, you want to solve the problem by breaking it into smaller problems, each of which you can deal with. So yeah, I know you're getting upset because the computer's not working properly. Look, I can fix that for you. There you go. Job's done. No, it doesn't even get close to it. And whilst that might be part of the solution, it can't be presented as the solution. Walking away, taking a deep breath, saying, let's reconvene in 10 minutes time and let's have another chat about this, just takes the heat out of the situation, and that helps enormously. But I think the reality is to remember that the person who is suddenly having a go at you is the same person that you fell in love with and married all those years ago, and they haven't changed. And in 15 minutes time, they may be back to the person they were when they woke up that morning. This is just a small episode. And as I said, the one thing I say to Emma is, it's okay. I know this isn't you. And that helps.
Yeah, brilliant advice. And I think, not being judgmental, we're very judgmental people anyway, aren't we? And I think through COVID, we've, those of us that have kind of had a real stark kind of look at what we want to be and how we want to be post-COVID, being non-judgmental is a big part of that for a lot of us, in terms of not only our personal relationships, but also community and collaboration and work and environment and everything. But it isn't easy. And, I think what men need to understand is that, women will be, as you quite rightfully say, very confused in their own brains about what's going on. Even if you know that this is menopause, you're still pretty confused because your hormones are in charge here, you're not. And that it's not nice for your woman. So many women say, I've stopped seeing in colour, I now see in black and white. And I feel like I'm going mad. She will be very concerned. And my advice is not to take it personally.
It's good advice. Yeah. Definitely.
Because it's really not about you. It's really about her own fears and her own insecurities. And the more that you can do what you're doing, which is just to, support without being patronizing about it, of course, but actually just say, okay, explain to me what you feel like. I'm here to listen. And, I sometimes say to my husband, I don't want you to solve this, but I'm just going to tell you what's happening to me at the moment. So just listen. He goes, okay.
Yeah, funny enough, I used to work with 2 managers, and one of them had a similar way of dealing with this, which was he would walk into his boss's office and he'd shut the door, and his boss would be at the desk writing away. And yeah, what do you need? And then he'd walk up and down in his office, and he'd keep pacing up and down and literally talk out loud. And at the end of it, he'd look up and said, "You all right now?" "Yeah, fine." And he'd walk out. And the guy behind the desk, his boss, wouldn't have said a word to him other than hello. That's it. But it's that articulating of how you feel. It's getting it out into the open. And of course, what we as men typically do is try and find the answer. Whatever's coming out of woman's mouth, we want to find the answer. No. Just don't do it. Just sit there, just listen. Definitely works.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm really grateful to you today. And, I know that we'll see each other soon, and we'll be in touch soon as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.